other than capitalism. The real villain of Inception 2010, other than capitalism. Obviously. Hi, my name is Haley Whipjack. You can call me Haley, you can call me Whipjack, you can call me whatever you want as long as you're cool about it. And I always thought I liked Inception too much to make a video about it, but here we are. I think Inception 2010 really did change something in my brain chemistry when I saw it, in 2010. I was a child, but I knew. Maybe I didn't perfectly understand it at the time, but what I did understand is that all of the people I was seeing on the internet who thought they were so cool for telling me how much I didn't understand it, they were wrong. They were wrong. And I've held that conviction for my whole life now. Inception came out 12 years ago. I'm recording this in 2022. It came out in 2010, and I still know those guys were all wrong. We're going to be talking a lot about Inception today, about its themes, its characters, its plots, the correct ways to view it. But I worry that you, like most people who saw Inception, saw it once in 2010, maybe twice, and haven't properly sat down with a DVD copy to watch it since. So the first thing we're going to do today is a very brief, actually brief, recap of the plot of Inception. I feel like the meme is that Inception is really, really complicated, and it both is and isn't. The actual plot's not. Let me explain. In Christopher Nolan's Inception 2010, a man named Dominic Cobb gets a team together to commit dream crime, putting an idea directly into a powerful man's brain to convince him to dissolve his father's energy empire at the behest of another second powerful man, so that the first man, putting the team together, can have criminal charges dropped and he can go home to see his family. There's bumps along the way, but in the end, they succeed. Everybody wins, and he goes home, presumably to retire and not do any more dream crime. It's a heartwarming story. But, I don't care. I'll get back to that. One second. On its face, it's really not that difficult. There's criminals, they go into people's minds to pull out or put in information for powerful businessmen. And the complications come in the details, because it's all dream logic. But it's a lot of men making bad decisions. And isn't that every movie when you get down to it? I say it's really just about men making bad decisions when you think about it. Getting back to what a heartwarming story, but I really don't care about it. The main character of this story, Dominic Cobb, is so terrible. I would be actively rooting against him if his failure was not going to affect every other character in the story. Does that make sense? I enjoy everyone he's surrounded with, and his success is linked directly to everyone else's success because they're all in a team together. But I really wish somehow they would have cut him at the beginning, Inception 2010 and its wiki will tell you that the primary antagonist of the story is Mal Cobb. There she is, right up there. That's the biggest lie I've ever heard in my life. Mal Cobb is your primary. I didn't even mention her in my recap. How is she the primary antagonist of the story? You're wrong. We'll get a lot more into Mal later, but just to get it out of the way, she is everything to me. She's my mother. She did nothing wrong. And you will do well to remember it. So who's the antagonist then? I feel like you may have already kind of caught on to who I'm going to say the antagonist is in the end of this. I'm not being very subtle, but let's talk about some of our other options. Maybe you could call the man that they're invading and putting an idea into his head. You could maybe call him the antagonist because he's kind of the force they're working against. But this man is just daddy issues personified. He's so sad and he's so nice to them. I wouldn't feel good calling him an antagonist. That man, the one that they're invading, his name is Robert Fisher. He's played by Cillian Murphy. Is it Cillian? It can't be Killian, right? Cillian Murphy. Cheekbones Batman guy. You know him. And I'd like to call the other big, powerful businessman, Saito, an antagonist because it feels like he should be one. It feels like in any other story, he would be the bad guy. But in this one, he's the impetus for the story. He's the hook. He's hiring them. And he's also on their team and is very heavily invested in their success in more ways than one. He's working with the protagonists. So he's just a billionaire who's here for funsies. Saito's not the antagonist, is what I'm saying. Even though it feels like character archetype-wise, he should be. He's fine. No. The real villain here is the very man that the wiki identifies as the primary protagonist, Leonardo DiCaprio's Dom Cobb. The sins of Dom Cobb. Now this is where we really get into the plot details. You thought you were going to get out of here without far too much detailed knowledge about what happens in Inception 2010? Are you new? I'm sure all this will make more sense if you've recently or ever seen Inception, but as always, it's funnier if you haven't, so let's go. Sin number 1. That's a dumb name. It's bad. Get a new one. Dom Cobb. Dom Cobb. It's almost better when it's Dominic Cobb, but then you've got that like double Dominic Cobb. I don't like that. But then Dom Cobb, it just like sits in the mouth. It's bad. I don't like it. It doesn't help his case. Sin number 2. His totem is stupid and it's not even his. Let's talk totems. What does that mean? Well, a totem in Inception 2010 is something that you can use to determine if you are in reality or if someone has you trapped in a dream. Kind of its whole idea is it's a small object that you keep on you at all times that only you know exactly how it works. Examples from the movie. Ariadne's totem is a queen chess piece that she has particularly hollowed out so that only she knows exactly how it falls. Further aside, for the character of Ariadne, I am going to continue to use she, her pronouns. That's what Ariadne uses. But if we're talking about the actor Elliot Page, it'll be he, him, of course. Another totem is Arthur's. He has a loaded die, but nobody else knows exactly the weight of his loaded die. So if he throws a die a few times and sees what he expects to see, he knows he's in reality. Eames over there has a poker chip with a particular misspelling on it that only he knows about because nobody else looks at it that closely, which I think is great. You get the idea. They're just small objects with a little quirk that nobody else knows about. You don't let anyone else touch your totem. You don't let anyone else see you interacting closely with your totem. You don't do it. It's the one tether to determine if you're in the real world, okay? They're important. Dom Cobb's is a top. It's a top. It's a fancy top. It's a little isometric top. Ooh, it's a top. We all know what tops do, idiot. They fall down. The movie will have us believe that in dreams, the top just spins and spins and spins forever. It's a fun little visual. That's not what tops do. This is so confusing to me. I don't like it. Like I said, it's a fun visual. I can pretty much forgive it, even though it literally doesn't match with the description of totem that we're given. The other sin about it is it's not even his totem. It's Maul's. I said we're getting into Maul later. It's not time yet. We're going to get into Maul later. But he doesn't even have his own totem. He uses Maul's. What did he use before he took Maul's? We don't know. It probably made more sense. I'm not here to insult Maul and her totem. I'm sure she used it great. This is stupid. I care a lot about how Inception's internal logic works. And he breaks it. He breaks it. So these first two sins are not really villain or antagonist worthy, I would say, but I had to talk about them. I had to get them out of the way. Let's move on to some villain worthy shit. Men would literally rather drag an innocent college student into dream crime instead of go to therapy. Ariadne, no last name given, was an innocent college student going to architecture college in France, Paris, I think. When Dom Cobb showed up to ask his father-in-law, who teaches architecture at this fancy Parisian college, if he knew anybody studying architecture in college, innocent, 22, 23, 24-year-olds, I think they were in grad school, if any of them would be interested in doing a job with him. Some of this is on Michael Caine, who plays his father-in-law. Cobb knows exactly what the risks are here. And he does it anyway. He finds a promising young mind in Ariadne and gets her hooked on dreaming. These are really iconic scenes. If you've seen the movie, you probably remember them. It's Ariadne and Dom Cobb in Ariadne's dreams. And like the cafe explodes and they do the thing where she folds the world in half. So it's like the upside down city. You remember, it's on the posters. It's great scenes, but what's actually happening is so insidious to me. Ariadne wakes up from these dreams, violently startled, afraid, doesn't want to do it again, yelling at Cobb, who's not comforting her. By the way, Arthur is comforting her. Cobb is like ignoring her. And when she storms away and Arthur asks if they need to look for a new architect, Dom tells him no, because she'll be back. Because Cobb knows exactly how addicting what he has shown her is. Of course she'll be back. You just showed her what it was like to feel like a god. Ariadne was supposed to get brought into this to never be in any actual danger, but like, is getting her hooked on a profession fueled by international business crime not dangerous? I'm not following the logic. Ariadne is like the secondary protagonist of this movie, the audience stand-in. And Cobb is so mean to her. So mean to her. If we don't call Cobb the protagonist, if we call Ariadne the protagonist, he is a villain to her. Especially if we check back in with her, 10, 20 years down the line? 100% he ruined her life. Forever. I guarantee it. He didn't even like explain it all the way before doing it to her. We gotta move on. I'm gonna keep getting angry this whole video. I can't burn myself out now. Sin number 4. He lies to literally everyone the whole time. Just settle in, okay? We have a lot to cover with this one. Dominic Cobb lies to Arthur. Right up here, Arthur, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who has never once done anything wrong. The opening scene of this movie involves Arthur seeing the manifestation of Dom Cobb's guilt projection in the dream, before Cobb does, by the way, asking if he can handle it. And when Cobb says yes, like a liar, this gets Arthur tortured casually the whole time. Cobb is telling Arthur, seemingly the only person in the world that likes him, that he has everything under control. Things have never been less in control for Dom Cobb, and I don't know what he even gains by lying to Arthur. This man is on your side. He's the only one who seems to want to be there, and you're lying to him. Why? Again, we're ramping up. We're getting to why it's extra bad he's lying to Arthur. Don't worry, we're getting there. Secondary sin attached to this lying one. Cobb is kind of just mean to Arthur as well. After they invade Robert Fisher's mind, you recall, Cheekbones Batman man, they invade his mind. What they're doing is going in there to plant an idea that he wants to split up his father's energy empire shortly after his father's death, by the way. They do it like 6 hours after the man died. They're going in there to plant that idea for Saito, their other businessman friend. And Arthur misses a detail about Robert Fisher during his research. One detail. Arthur's job, you can't see it. It's on the poster, but it's above, it's off screen. His job is the point man. That's what he does. He makes and executes plans. He has all the contacts. He does all the research, and he's damn good at it. All he's doing the whole movie is being perfect and professional and the best at his job. He misses one detail when looking at Robert Fisher's everything, and it's an important detail. It is. But I don't know how he wouldn't have missed it, quite frankly. Robert Fisher had previously had somebody involved in dream crime come into his business, I guess, and train his subconscious, like militarize his brain against dream crime. So he's got like dream police in there, like a dream army or something. And they didn't know that going in. And now this mission is way more dangerous because they weren't ready for that. But also, where would you find that detail? He's got that like on his LinkedIn or something? That's not on like medical records. Where would you go to find, oh, his subconscious is militarized? Where? Is Arthur going to call up all of his many dream contacts and ask them if any of them have militarized one of the most powerful energy tycoons in the world? That wouldn't be suspicious. That wouldn't be weird. Everyone would think that was fine. Of course he missed that detail. Where? How would you find that detail? But Cobb freaks the fuck out. He's yelling at Arthur. He like pushes him. Personally, I would not let that slide. I hate him. I really do. He also lies to Ariadne, whose only crime is being incredibly nosy. But me too, babe. Also telling Ariadne that everything's fine when it's not, as we've stated. When Ariadne, being really nosy and wonderful, finds out that things are not fine and that everything is actually really bad, she says, hey, you should tell somebody about this. She actually particularly says you should tell Arthur about this because she's right. Ariadne goes into Cobb's dreams without him knowing about it, which isn't like cool, but she had good reason to do so. Cobb was being weird as hell, and she rightly assumed that if one person was in a bad mental state, it would affect everybody else going into the dream together. She was right to do this. And in his dreams, she found the ghostly projection of all of his guilt and bad feelings that haunts them around and killed Ariadne in her first dreaming experiments, and also wears the face of his ex-wife casually. And Ariadne was like, hey, I don't really care that you've constructed a dream structure to store all your memories of your dead wife in. That's your business. But if she's following you into the dreams, do you think you should tell somebody about that? Do you think you should maybe tell your one and only friend who goes into dreams with you about that? And Cobb says no. Cobb says no. He says, no, I will not be doing that. Arthur doesn't need to know that. Just come into the dream with us so that somebody knows who's going in. You can just come. Ariadne agreed to this mission with the understanding that she was not going into the dream with them. Her job, the architect, is to build the levels, create the mazes, and teach them to the people going into the dreams. That was her job. That was all she was here to do. Make a maze, make a little city, a level of a building, show it to Arthur, show it to Eames, teach it to them so that they could navigate it in the dream, and then they would be the ones doing the dangerous dream shit. But because Cobb won't just tell Arthur about what he's going through, he says, no, she'll just come with. So then somebody knows, you know? Somebody in the dream space knows what Cobb is going through. It's fine that it's Ariadne. It's fine that it's like a 24-year-old architect grad student who's never done this before. That's cool, probably. I think that's the best choice. This is also just a trend with Cobb where anytime somebody makes a suggestion that Cobb didn't come up with, he goes, no, that won't work. That's dumb. We're not doing that. Just refuses outright. Sometimes they're good ideas. This was a good idea. And he just shoots it down in a second. He does this every time somebody else says an idea. He has to be the smartest person in the room. He has to be the only person with ideas. This is a group project. In dream crime, either the whole team succeeds or the whole team fails. What are you going for here? Anyway, he lied to Ariadne. She got too suspicious. Now she's dragged into this. Her life is ruined even more, and Cobb is still a liar. And now we're at the biggest lie. Cobb lies to everyone about the chemical compound that they are using to enter the dreaming space. Let's talk about chemical compound. Fictional chemical compound in Inception 2010 is called somnocin, because like sleep, you know it. Somnocin. The somnocin chemical compound plus these big briefcase-sized machines called passives that they all hook up to allow them to do this shared dreaming thing that they do. They could not do this without the passive and somnocin. Are you following? One of the members on this team is Yusuf. Yusuf is the chemist. That is his job. That is his title. He's the chemist. His whole life is making somnocin compounds to essentially all do the same thing, but to tailor them to specific circumstances. He's good at what he does. That's why he's here. I love Yusuf. I really do. We're going to be able to hit a little bit more on Yusuf later. Now, the people on this team who have done a lot of dream crime before are very familiar with somnocin and its effects. Those people are Don Cobb, Arthur, and Eames. Okay, they do this a lot. They know how somnocin works. Somnocin puts you under real deep, so you're able to achieve this kind of lucid shared dreaming. But when you die in the dream, you wake up. No matter what. That's always the rule. They established this early. First scene. When I told you that Arthur got tortured in a dream, it's because Dom Cobb taunted the evil projection of his ex-wife, we'll get there, by saying, if you shoot him, he'll just wake up. And she went, yeah, but we're in his brain. And pain is mental, and like shoots him in the knee just to cause him pain, because she knew that shooting him in the head would wake him up. Dom Cobb eventually releases Arthur from the dream and the pain and the torture by shooting him in the head because it wakes him up. Ariadne woke up from her first dream experiments when Mal stabbed her, I think, woke her up because she died in the dream. We all know this rule. More importantly, Arthur and Eames and Ariadne all know this rule. Even Saito, who they brought along with him because he was like, I'm paying you millions and millions of dollars. Take me into the dream or you won't get anything. Even he has been told this rule. When you die in the dream, you wake up. Saito, in fact, nearly immediately begins dying in a dream. He gets shot by that militarized subconscious. And Eames... I keep getting it wrong every time. Eames goes to just shoot him in the head to wake him up so he's not just like slowly dying in pain. And Dom Cobb says, this time, when you die in the dream, you don't wake up. The chemical compound, the specific somnocin they're using this time, puts them under so deeply that if they die, they instead drop into what is called limbo. It is unstructured, pure subconscious dream space where the time dilation is insane. Time dilation is a big part of a lot of the explanations in this movie. However, it's really not necessary to understand, like, the plot. And I don't want to get into that with you because Inception's really not that confusing when you just try to figure out what's happening. It's the little details. It's the little things. But the time dilation in limbo is crazy. Basically, if you spend like a minute of real world time with your brain stuck in limbo, you've spent years in your head just alone. That's fucked. And importantly, if you spend enough time in limbo, you can basically end up brain dead. And they're planning to be under for this mission for about 10 hours. So if Saito drops into limbo right away at the beginning, that's not good. Obviously, it's not good for Saito, but it's also not good for Cobb or really for the rest of the team. If Saito is brain dead, then at the end of this, he can't make the calls to allow Cobb to go home to his children. I haven't really touched on that yet. We'll get to that when we talk about Mom. Also, none of them would get paid if that happened. And they have gone through too much bullshit, too much of Cobb's bullshit to not get paid. This is unfortunately also Yusuf's only crime because he also didn't tell anyone, but Cobb promised him his entire share of the profits to keep it a secret. That has to be multiple millions of dollars. Like, I don't think Yusuf's trying to get out of the dream crime game, but if he was, this would be a good way to do it. And if he's not, pretty sure he's the only one on the team who consistently needs to be buying a lot of very specific shady chemicals from the black market. So good for Yusuf is what I'm saying, but also, hey. So Cobb's a big liar, and he's a big liar in ways that directly endanger everyone else on the team. Everyone else on the team. And he's the hero? No. You want me to root for this guy? Well, I guess you better give me a really sympathetic backstory about the ex-wife. Uh-oh. Dom Cobb inceptioned his wife, leading to her untimely, early demise. Mal Cobb deserved better. I'm fascinated by her. I love her. And what happened to her sucks. It's so sad. So now it is time to really dig into Mal Cobb. Mal Cobb, daughter of Michael Caine's character, something Miles. Her last name used to be Miles. married Dom Cobb, and they got involved in the dream crime scene together somehow. There's not really backstory there, but dream crime, dreaming experiments, they were doing them. And at some point during these dreaming experiments, they dug too deep. Maybe they went too many levels down, maybe they did it some other way, but they both fell into limbo. Remember I explained limbo earlier? They were there together for, as they experienced it, 50 years. 50 years playing God, building cities, cathedrals, a world that was theirs. Just the two of them. Alone. At some point during these 50 years, Mal accepted it as reality. And I don't blame her. The idea of being somewhere like that for that long, I don't know how you don't accept that as reality. They were not 50 years old when this happened. They spent more time to them in limbo than they had ever lived in reality. Of course she accepted it as just reality. Not Cobb though, because he's so different and special. So Mal didn't want to leave limbo. Cobb tried to convince her and it just wasn't working. So he inceptioned her. We have not defined Inception yet. Not Inception 2010, but what they're doing in the movie, the concept of Inception. Dom Cobb's job is extraction. He's the extractor. That's his role. That's his punchy little title. That means he goes into dreams and he takes information. He heists it from people. We do dream heists here. It's such a cool concept. The opposite of extraction is inception. It's placing an idea into the mind, and it's much more difficult to do. Arthur explains it near the beginning. The mind can always trace where it gets an idea from. So it has to be a really simple idea. It has to be an idea that you kind of let the dreamer come to on their own. It's very precise. It's very subtle. You've got to have a lot of imagination to do it. Inception is complicated, and it's also morally, I would say, a dubious thing to do. That's what they're doing in Robert Fisher's mind, right? They're placing the idea for him to break up his father's empire. Dom Cobb inceptioned his wife with a very simple idea. Using her fucked up weird totem, sending it just spinning in the place that he had found kind of represented the center of Mal's mind. He walked in, broke into a little dollhouse, and sent the top going, where because they were in a dream, it didn't stop. Which gave her kind of the innate idea in her that her reality was not real. That everything around her, was a dream. Which is what Cobb wanted. But man, maybe you should have just killed her. I don't... Because dying in limbo apparently wakes you up, gets you out of it. That's how they get out of limbo. Mr. and Mrs. Cobb lay down on a railroad track and, come to the natural conclusion from that. And then they wake up in reality, in the world. But he inceptioned her successfully. The idea that he planted in limbo didn't just leave her head because they woke up in a place with other people and cars and grocery stores and stuff. It was still in there. So Mal Cobb remained convinced that the world around her was a dream, and that what she and Cobb needed to do was wake up. And how do you wake up from a dream? Mal Cobb jumped out of a very high up window after fabricating a lot of evidence that her husband killed her. She got herself declared sane by therapists. She submitted a report saying she felt that her life was in danger because of her husband. She trashed the hotel room they were supposed to be staying at. She did this carefully. She framed him well. It's kind of girl boss. She did this to convince him to follow her, to do it as well, to wake up. Even though, of course, there's nothing to wake up from because they were in reality. But he inceptioned her without thinking of any of the consequences. She was begging him to wake up with her so they could go back to their real children. They have kids. I haven't mentioned that enough. They have kids. Why do these two people have kids? From what I can tell, they had the kids pre-limbo experiment. That seems to be how it's framed. So they had 2 kids and then kept doing little mad scientist experiments? I don't understand that. Maybe if just one of them was doing mad scientist experiments, I would understand. It's the fact that both of them decided to keep doing wildly dangerous dream experiments. Which one of them wanted kids? Who broached that subject? I don't understand. Like, this doesn't matter. I know it doesn't matter. But the moment the question entered my head of why do they have kids, like I can't get it back out. It's fascinating to me that were they trying to settle down while still doing wild, dangerous dream experiments? Who are they doing these experiments for? Themselves? Like, don't do that. Maybe. It's just a thought I had. But they had kids. James and Philippa. I want to say that when Mal died, my guess, they never give us ages. My guess is that, like, Philippa was, like, 6 and James was, like, 3. So they had the kids. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And now those kids live with Mal's mom, and we're supposed to be like sad that Mal's mom cuts their phone calls with their dad short. Like, I'm amazed she lets you call at all, my man. That is a testament to how much that woman loves those kids, that she even like hands them the phone. So Mal died. And with her death, everyone believed Cobb did it because she made very sure that everyone would believe that Cobb did it. So he had to flee the country. He can't go home. That's why he's accepting the job from Saito, so all of his charges can be cleared so he can see his children again. And I guess retire this time. Sounds likely. And in the aftermath of this, now a fucked up evil projection of Mal haunts every single dream that Cobb enters. If I was Mal, I'd be pissed. I'd be pissed. You're remembering some like half-formed version of me with a single personality trait, and the one you picked was like my insatiable need for revenge? Remember me for my sense of humor or something. Christ. Basically, it's not Mal that we're seeing in this movie. It is specifically a guilt-driven projection of Mal that Cobb's brain created because he feels like he deserves to be hunted down for what he did. Because he feels bad about inceptioning his wife. Boo-hoo! So even if you want to say that Mal Cobb is the primary antagonist, which I do think you're wrong, but if you wanted to say that, you would specifically be saying it about the version that Cobb created with his brain. It's the version that is Cobb. That's not Mal. It's all Cobb. And you know what else? Arthur and Mal were close, too. All Cobb does is ruin Arthur's life. Why are they still friends? Like, we don't get a lot of glimpses into the kind of the interpersonal web that these characters create in this movie. So it means something when Ariadne asks Arthur what Mal was like in real life. He very genuinely and like earnestly responds that she was lovely. He sees Mal in the opening dream out of a crowd before Cobb does. I don't know what I'm supposed to gather from what they show me other than the fact that like they were friends and they were close and they worked together. Like, is that why Arthur and Cobb are still friends? Because he feels bad? Maybe Cobb sucked less before the whole Mal inception window thing. Like, they were probably just little mad scientists together. It probably ruled. It doesn't anymore, though. Get out of there, Arthur. Christ. I think that pretty definitively proves that Cobb is the real antagonist of Inception, because even if we're saying that somebody else is the antagonist, it's still Cobb at the end of the day. I'm not done. He doesn't watch the top fall at the end. The top falls. Not on screen, but it falls. Argue with the wall. I don't even really blame Cobb for this. Christopher Nolan has a whole statement about the ending of the movie. In case you forgot, or in case you don't know, the end of this movie, they finish the job. It's a success. Everything's great. Cobb goes home to his kids. And what he does is he takes out his totem to check if it's reality or dreaming. He places it on a table and he sets it spinning. And then he sees his children's faces, something we very deliberately have not seen the entire movie. Every time he's dreaming, he never sees his kids' faces. He sees his children. And he leaves the top on the table without checking to see if it falls or spins forever. The top does a little wibble wobble, and then the screen cuts to black. That's the ending of the movie Inception. So, Christopher Nolan's statement, when explicitly asked if at the end of the movie it's dream or if it's reality, his official statement is that it doesn't matter. Cobb doesn't care anymore. That's why he just walks away without looking. He has accepted that he is going to live in whatever version of the world he's in right now. He's happy. He has his kids. He doesn't care. It does not matter to Cobb what the answer is to the question he was asking with the totem, which I think makes sense. Sure. I had to deal with years of people on the internet thinking they were so cool for coming up with edgy versions of the ending of Inception where it isn't real and actually things are bad. And you remember that scene in the middle where he tried to spin the totem but he was too anxious and shaky and never did it right? It was all dream from there on out. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Why do you want that? Why did this story about dream heists and redemption make you want that ending? Is that narratively satisfying to you? The story of Inception does not make sense if it is a dream at the end. It doesn't make sense. That's not a resolution. He finally banished Mal, made his peace with his guilt, accepted his life, finished his job, gets his whole crew out safely without turning anyone's brain to scrambled eggs. Saito comes close, but he does it. He succeeds. He gets to see his kids again. He gets everything he wants. And it's narratively satisfying to you that that's not real? No, it's not. Plus, there's the thing where he sees his kids' faces again at the end, which he very intentionally did not do while in dreaming. We see the back of his kids so many times. We only see their faces at the end. Plus, Michael Caine told us outright. Christopher Nolan told Michael Caine that any scene that he is in happens in reality, that character will never appear in dreaming. And who's in the final scene? It's Mal's dad, played by Michael Caine, here to welcome Dominic Cobb home. It's reality. Argue at the wall. Dom Cobb, I understand that you accepted everything and you leaving your guilt and your past behind if you would have watched for another 5 seconds to see the follow through on the wobble, because the top never wobbled in dreaming and we could have just watched it fall over. I was 12, furious reading these things online. Like, how do these people not understand movies? I've been mad for years. Anyway, that one's not Dom Cobb so much as it's Christopher Nolan, but I am going to blame Cobb because I don't like him very much. Sin number 7, he's in the way. Let me explain. Dom Cobb is the most boring part of this movie, and I will die on that hill. Yes, the professional dream heister with a guilt story about a dead wife and all of this motivation to get back to his family and complicated deals he makes with businessmen is the most boring part of the movie, which is a testament to how interesting every other element is. It overshadows him and he keeps getting in the way. The other characters are so interesting. Mal, the real Mal Cobb, gets almost No screen time or exploration. We know she was cool. She had to have been cool. Why else would anyone work with Dom Cobb? And all we see of her is the shade, is the projection, is the fake guilt monster. Show me all. Arthur, no last name, is so fascinating. I want to dissect him. He is a perfect, buttoned up, absolutely pristine professional who is the best out of all of them at hand-to-hand combat, has no qualms with murder, does this crime stuff like it's what he was born to do. I want to interview him. I want to know everything about him. I want to take him to therapy. I want to tell him to leave Cobb after this job. Please leave Cobb after this job. Eames? Eames? No first name given. Eames is the highlight of every scene he's in, and there's not enough of him. Tom Hardy plays Eames. I haven't even talked about him yet. He's so me-coded, it's crazy. Eames shows up in some of the dumbest pattern shirts you've ever seen and just decides to steal the show. And he can have it. Eames's job is the forger, which means in dreams, he can perfectly become somebody else. Physically, voice, all of it. He just perfectly replicates or sometimes fully creates another persona to be in dreams. So in Robert Fisher's dream, he mimics and pretends to be Fisher's godfather, kind of his uncle figure, to make him feel more connected to what's happening around him. And it works, and Eames is so good at his job. Later, in the next level of dream, he just decides to be a hot blonde lady to distract Fisher for a little bit. And he's so excited to be a hot blonde lady for a little bit. I know what you are. Eames is the forger. He finds his worth and his validation in studying and replicating other people instead of in being himself. And when he is himself, he is so intentionally annoying and brash and unavoidable in conversation. But he's also like a master sneaky criminal who can blend into a crowd with untold emotional intelligence. That's my best friend. That's my sweet cheese. I'm gonna so briefly touch on these two as a unit real quick. Arthur and Eames are the only thing that the still present Inception fandom cares about because they're baby girl. They're divorced. They're enemies to lovers. They're domestic. All of their interactions speak to a long, complicated history that has led them to have this sort of like playful banter. Maybe there really was some tension somewhere, but now they're very comfortable working together kind of vibes. And Cobb keeps standing in front of it and getting in the way of me learning more about what in the world they are talking about. Arthur and Eames' dynamic is so good. It's so good. There's something about Eames, whose whole job is imagination, becoming, creating, pure dream space manipulation, and Arthur, whose whole job is working the shit in the real world and getting people together and plans and research, and just the complementing of the... I love them. They are everything to me. And more importantly, they're so funny and good to watch.
Eames, I am impressed.
Your condescension, as always, is much appreciated, Arthur. Thank you.
We need to do a little better than we might.
Oh, thank you for your contribution, Arthur.
Forgive me for wanting a little specificity, Eames. Specificity.
What's a kick?
This, Ariadne, would be a kick. You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling. Security's gonna run you down, huh?
And I will lead them on a merry chase.
Just be back before the kick.
Go to sleep, Mr. Eames.
And they get like 6 scenes together so we can keep going back to Cobb feeling bad about himself. Get out of the way. Take a nap. And yes, there is still an Inception fandom. Believe it or not, we will be coming back to that. Other characters more interesting than Cobb, Ariadne. Ariadne was so easily roped into this whole thing. Ariadne's conversations with Arthur, because God forbid Cobb explain what he's getting her into, her conversations with him about how dreaming works are so interesting. They talk about like paradoxes, they get into their projections and how that all works. I really wanted him to like sit down and explain kind of the business side of it, because they all know she's trapped in it now. She's addicted. They literally say it outright. Also, why did the story decide that those two needed to do a distraction kiss? One of those classic, oh, people are looking at us. Maybe if we just have a quick smooch, they'll stop looking at us. Except they were dream projections. It didn't work, and neither of them looked like they liked it. It was weird all around. Christopher Nolan, I have questions. Is it because Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Tom Hardy had a little too much chemistry? You can tell me. I really do wish they just kind of dug into Ariadne a little bit more. I almost want to sit down with Elliot Page and be like, do you remember when you did Inception? Why was your character like so immediately ride or die for dream crime? What was going on there, kind of like mentally and emotionally? How was her childhood? Did she have a good relationship with her father? I want to guess no. She really wanted to impress Dom Cobb. She really wanted him to like her. Arthur, too. Moving on to Saito. Saito is so funny. He's so funny. I don't like a billionaire, but he always does the funniest possible things with his money. He turns to dream crime to get what he wants like it's nothing. He buys an airline just so a flight attendant won't spill to the press about this group of people drugging Robert Fisher on a plane. He decides he has to come personally on the mission. He needs to go into the dream with the professionals so he can make sure that they did it right, as though he doesn't just want to see how they do it. He's not just interested in it. I know you just want to be a part of dream crime, but you can't because you're a billionaire with a business. I'm sorry you discovered a new passion that's out of your reach. Don't lie. His job title, like on his character poster, is literally the tourist. He's the tourist. I don't need a lot more Saito in this movie. I think he's in it an okay amount. But I just have to point out how funny he is to me. I feel like if my new business rival was Robert Fisher, I could maybe find a way to get what I wanted that wasn't hiring dream criminals to do a dream heist and then going on said dream heist. But like, I'm not going to tell him how to live his life. That's cool. Speaking of Fisher, I actually don't need more of him. He was in the movie enough. There is a perfect amount of Fisher crying in this movie. Good, Christopher Nolan. I liked that. Cheekbones Batman man has a good cry face and a lot of daddy issues in this story. And that's really all he had to be, and he did it great. Yusuf, the last member of the team we haven't discussed, is so cute and fun and gets absolutely nothing to do in this story. He spends half the movie driving a van in slow motion, left behind on the very first level of the dream they went on while everyone else goes on deeper levels and keeps doing things. He's just driving a van for half the movie. The disrespect. Speaking of Yusuf, the world building that is set up in the first half of this movie that Christopher Nolan just kind of sets down in front of me and then walks away from without explaining. When we meet Yusuf, I can't remember if he was in Mombasa. Eames was in Mombasa. It's fine. Wherever it is that we meet Yusuf, he has a dreaming den in his basement. Yusuf, if you'll recall, is the chemist. He develops the somnacin, the chemical that lets them into this dreaming state. And his specific concoctions, he's got a lot of, he tests them. And there's like 12 people that come every single day to the dreaming den to get put under and attached to a passive to dream together. And because of that time dilation that we mentioned earlier, every day they do this, they experience basically 4 days in the dream. And then when they wake up, they spend like 12 hours in reality and then come back to to experience 4 days in the dream, and then they wake up, and they do this every day. And I think it's Eames, it might be Saito, who asks, why do they do this? Why do they come here to sleep and dream every day? And Yusuf's assistant goes, no, they come here to wake up. They spend more time in the dream than they spend in reality. So the dream has become their reality. We see this happen to multiple people in this movie. But it is so interesting that these seemingly regular people got hooked. How did that happen? Who gave these random people Somnocin and got them hooked? Was it Yusuf? For experiments, and then it just went a little too far and he didn't think about the ramifications, and now he just runs this dreaming den and eats up his concoctions this way? I don't know. I don't know how many people in the world of Inception can only dream like this, because they make it clear in some conversations with Cobb that once you do Somnocin dreaming enough, you can't dream without it anymore, which is part of the reason they get so hooked on it, because they can't have regular dreams. How many people in this world are affected by that? What are the ramifications of just giving folks Somnocin for testing? I'm fascinated. That's such a small example. Going to a broader one, the general idea of dream crime is so good. Christopher Nolan landed on the idea of dream heist, heisting from somebody's brain through the power of dreaming, and then just barely explains it or gets into it as like an underworld organization. That would be what my whole movie was about. That's why I don't do movies, I guess. Jumping off of that, dream crime originated in the military. They tell us in a kind of a throwaway little line why. Arthur, who tells us this information, says that it's so soldiers could train in like safe environments. You know, they could practice being in an active war zone without being in an active war zone. I don't believe him. I don't believe him. The government, the US government, developing technology for extraction and inception and testing it on the military. There's conspiracy shit there. That's conspiracy shit. It's like when they tried to do mind control experiments. It's that, but they succeeded this time. That's horrifying. I hate that that's where dream crime originated. I wish it was just mad scientist stuff. They don't get into it. They just tell us that, and then they leave it there. That line from Arthur has actually led a lot of people to believe that Arthur's backstory was in the military and that he was one of the first people in those dreaming military experiments, which I do really enjoy as an Arthur backstory. I think that really works. It's not canon. They don't tell us that in the movie, but I think it really works. I also love the specificity of all the different roles that they play. Arthur's the point man, Cobb's the extractor, Eames is the forger, Ariadne's the architect, Yusuf's the chemist, and there's dialogue referencing other people who have those roles, kind of pointing to this entire network of people who do this professionally, dream crime, dream heists, teams getting made and unmade on a job-by-job basis, needing these contacts, trying to stay in the good graces of other point men's around the world who will hopefully call you up for the next well-paying job. Like, do you not want to play in that space? Do you not want more of that world? Like, I know that it's annoying that pretty much everything getting made these days is like a reboot or a sequel or otherwise attached to an already existing and well-performing media property. But if they're going to do it with everything else, why have they not done it with Inception? In my head, there exists like this prestige HBO show. Not that HBO has been great lately, but follow me along with this, where we're just exploring new characters in this same world and world building. I'd personally vote we give the lead, the extractor role to Sadie Sink. I feel that in my heart and my soul. And she finds like her point man, and they use the point man's contacts to create a team and do dream heists. Maybe it falls apart and they have to find somebody else. I want hours of delving into the implications of Somnocin on the people who use it on a regular basis, the ramifications of shaping a world, or in the case of the forger, your own body at will, and then still having to live in the regular world most of the time, the ways that'll mess you up. People would watch it. The fandom, remember I said we were going to talk about it again, is small, especially these days, but it's real. New fics show up on AO3, Archive of Our Own, almost every single day, despite there being no new canon material for 12 years. There has not even been scraps hitting the table of the Inception fandom for 12 years. And there are still people devoted mostly to these two, but also the world building, the implications. Also, people in general liked Inception. It was kind of a cultural phenomenon when it came out. That's why I had to hear everybody's bad, edgy hot takes about how there was no happy ending. You wouldn't need to get Leonardo DiCaprio. In fact, please don't. You wouldn't need anyone from the original cast if you didn't want to, but I do literally guarantee that Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Tom Hardy would do it for cheap. They loved being in this movie. Pictures of the two of them on set, like, shadow boxing and messing around, are not hard to find, and they're very cute. Joseph Gordon-Levitt posted on his official Facebook page in like May of 2021 a screenshot from Inception 2010 of Arthur and Eames and captioned it, "My favorite time I've ever been called darling." Excuse me? These two loved being in Inception. They still talk about Inception. I guarantee you they would be in your Inception show. And as previously mentioned, they're kind of the main draw for people who really dug into this world and not just like saw the movie a couple of times. I do think it's because Eames and Arthur are one of the best examples of something that is clearly there. There's something very interesting there. It just isn't delved into. So people, you know, that's what fan works are for. They got into it on their own. Basically, I would do anything for more scenes of them being weird at each other. Pretty much anything. Just have them be a cameo in like one episode. Think of how fun that would be. Maybe even Yusuf could be there for just a little bit. There's absolutely no reason for Saito to be, you know, involved in dream crime post-Inception, so he wouldn't be there. Ariadne, I don't think Elliot Page would come back to play exactly Ariadne, but Ariadne could have transitioned, just like they did for the Umbrella Academy. Or Elliot Page doesn't have to be in this show. It's fine. We don't need cameos from any of them if we don't want them. I do want cameos from a couple, but we don't need them. And most of the show could take place in the regular world, in like houses and apartments and business rooms and cafes. It wouldn't even have to be wildly expensive like CGI-wise. If you're worried about that, HBO, I just feel crazy that there is no other Inception content. Like, it feels so obvious to me that that's a world that we could tell more stories in. And people love media where folks fit into like defined roles or jobs, and they love weird reality bending shit. We've seen that with all the like multiverse stuff lately. I'll do it even. Formal petition for Christopher Nolan to give me the rights for an Inception TV show where it is about dream heists, but more importantly, it's about human nature, addiction, interpersonal connection, corruption, conspiracy, and the effects of power. It would be so good. What were we talking about? Cobb. Dominic Cobb, standing in front of all the cool shit, whining about how he created a guilt-powered ghost of his dead wife. And I hate that it almost sounds cool when you say it out like that. He is the most boring part of a movie that he's the star of, and I've found it actually inhibits the exploration of the interesting themes and characters simply by virtue of him being one of the worst characters I've ever seen. He's loud, paranoid, secretive, conniving, and absent all at once. And at the same time, he believes he's the best at what he does, that he's the only one who can do the godlike tasks he gives to himself, while almost getting the only people who care about him killed in the process, their deaths wearing the distorted face of the wife he no longer respects as a complete person, but as a weak and one-sided symbol. His children have a father again, and I'm afraid that they will meet the same fate she did, deprived of personhood so they can better fit onto the shelf that Dom Cobb builds for them in an attempt to leave behind dream crime. desperately, pretending he is not addicted to the power, the money, the ability to dig his fingers into the world and make it into whatever he wants the same way he does to the people around him. Addicted the way that Ariadne is now, the way he made her for his own gain. He can't dream normally anymore, but he thinks still that he'll be happy now. I disagree. I think he's already dug his own grave. And while I don't really like the guy, I've been really subtle about it. At the end of the day, I can respect that he's a tragedy, that he will drag everyone in his life down with him, pushing away every life preserver, believing that he will learn on his own how to tread water. He is the antithesis of healing. In a world where people are fueled by the ability to create, to become essentially deities of creation and get stuck to that power and turn to any avenue, legal or not, to continue having it, Dom Cobb still manages to be a force of complete and absolute destruction. He is the villain of the story, both his own story and every other character's in the movie, and there's no way around it. Sin number 8, he's portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio. Thank you so much for watching this very long video about Inception 2010 that truly, at the end of the day, did not even explain the plot of Inception 2010. I really appreciate you being here. Like I said at the beginning, I thought Inception was one of those things I liked too much to talk about on the internet, but this in particular is something I can talk about, as you now know, for a very long time. And I had fun doing it. I hope you had fun being here. And if you did, I have other videos that you can take a look at. If you'd like to see me on other platforms, you can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Twitter. You can find my Dungeons & Dragons actual play podcast if you really wanted to, Unprepared Casters. New episodes every Monday. Please comment below who you would like to star in the inevitable Inception TV show. Be kind to the people in your life. I hope you're having a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, or whatever it is for you. And I will see you next time. I want to make it very clear, I already owned these posters. I just had to move them onto this wall. This is a lifestyle to me, not a game. I am winning though.